What's going on, everybody? Fedor here from 3D Print SOS. Welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, we are going to be taking a look at this. This is the Micron Plus kit build from Formbot, and I had an absolute blast building this thing on a bunch of live streams along with you guys. I'm going to be putting a playlist that's popping up right above me here, and the whole aim of doing that and the point of doing that is if you guys run into something when you guys are building this, when you're tackling this kit, and you run into some snag or something like that, you can always come back to the live streams, find that same spot where I was at, and maybe I came across something a little bit different. Maybe I can answer a question or help. Hopefully those are helpful to you, and that's definitely one of the reasons why I love doing it that way. But this Micron Plus is a really special machine, and I'll try to explain really briefly for those that don't know much about these kits. Obviously, if you already know, then you don't need this part. But one of my favorite machines that I have is the Voron Trident. You may or may not see it back there, but the Trident is a larger 3D printer. Same with the Voron 2.4, which this kind of is based off of. More than kind of. The whole point is those machines, the Trident, the 2.4, and the Legacy, use 2020 extrusions, larger extrusions than what you see here. And that gives you a super stout machine that you can build inside of that frame. That's what Vorons are all about. But then there's a smaller Voron called the Voron V0, which is also one of my favorite machines. And that machine uses smaller extrusions for the frame called 1515 extrusions and much smaller hardware. And what that does is it makes a printer that's significantly smaller in terms of footprint, that has really similar performance, top of the line performance in fact, but yet it's something that you can keep on your desk. And this is a little bit bigger than the V0, and it's largely, entirely based off the Voron 2.4. The 2.4 is also a very unique machine, and one of the best benefits of it is the bed platform is hard mounted to the bottom of the machine. And what that does is it allows this gantry that moves the tool head left and right, front and back. It also moves up and down. So all the motion, the whole motion system is kind of flying on these belts with 4 individual Z motors. And they call this the flying gantry. So all of the weight of the machine, all the mass, the electronics, everything that's heavy is down below and stationary. It does not move. Whereas the light tool head and the whole gantry system flies around. And that's what makes the 2.4 really special. It's actually somewhat similar to how Delta machines are, where the Delta platform is also on the very bottom, and then the Delta tool head moves around both up and down, left and right, forward and backward. It's a similar idea, except this uses the Core XY kinematics, whereas Delta uses Delta. So very fun machine, and whereas a 2.4 is very large, this takes all of that tech, all of that super fun and complexity, and puts it into a really small package. In fact, the build plates on this are the same as the Bambu Lab A1 Mini. As you can see right here, you can actually use these build plates. You just have to put them on sideways because you know, it uses its own little stopper system there. So very, very capable. And one of the main differences that you might notice right away between the standard Micron Plus and mine is mine does not have panels on it. That's for ease of maintenance at the moment, although this machine would be really good enclosed with a top hat, obviously building or printing ABS and ASA, which is going to be my main goal. Except for mine, I'm doing a little bit of future proofing. Those that have followed along know that I have a tool changer plan. You can see one more tool head here. My plan for this machine is to have 4 different tool heads, and that brings me to another point of building a machine like this. There's no one company that's out there telling you what to do with this machine, when to update it or when not to, what colors you can you know, print things with. This thing's completely up to you. It's going to take some planning, it's going to take some printing, and it's definitely going to take some building. And one of the coolest parts about this is if you want to do a modification, or if you want a certain a tool head on there, or just the new hot end, or if you have a new board that you want to throw in, maybe you want to modify something in Clipper without anyone telling you that you can't. This is definitely for you. This reminds me of pretty, you know, maybe you might not resonate with this analogy, but it definitely resonates with me. Something like the bunch of other machines that I have here in the studio, they are the daily drivers. They're the printers that will get you from point A to B, from point A to point B every single time. You can always throw a print on there and have a reliable print. But this reminds me of a car that you put together yourself, a project car, something that you get your hands dirty with, something that you work on. Not saying that this can't be reliable, but a Camry isn't always super fun to drive, whereas this thing is just a blast every single time. And in fact, even something like this cube, the very first time you print this cube, the fact that you built this thing yourself and you tuned it yourself and you got it to this point, even this feels incredible on something like this. And that's definitely one of my favorite parts. They're much more fun to use than a standard machine. And that might be why whenever you guys ask me on a live stream or questions, whatever, what machine I would keep if I was to keep just one, I often revert back to my Voron Trident that's behind me there, or my Voron V0, because both those machines, I could just do whatever I want with. I know them inside and out because I put together every single bolt, and there's something really special to that. And that's why I really love this thing too, because it sits in between those machines in this a really unique 3D printer for sure. So the point of this video, outside of that TLDR about how cool this thing is, I want to give you guys a list of my cons, as well as some things to look out for if you guys are going to go down the road of building a kit like this. Obviously, all of the pros of doing it. I just gave you a whole bunch of little ones here and there. And then we'll do a conclusion after checking out all of the cool prints that this thing managed to do, and just the quality that you can get with just minor tuning out of a printer like this. All right. Without further ado, let's jump into the cons. Let's go. All right, so not everything on this list is going to be just a straight up con. Some of these things are just advice I have if you're going to be building this, or just things to look out for. So just keep that in mind. That's why it might seem like this list is long. It's really not. But one thing that definitely doesn't have a list of cons this long is our sponsor for this video, PCBWay. Do you need PCBs? 3D printing, CNC machining, or even injection molding? PCBWay has you covered. Their services are very affordable. I was honestly surprised. It's no wonder makers all over the world trust them for their projects. Fast, reliable, easy to use, PCBWay helps bring your ideas to life. Be sure to check out the link in the description for the latest deals, and a big thanks to PCBWay for sponsoring today's video. All right, so number one is the lack of instructions. At the time when I was building this, the instructions were still being made, so they kind of abruptly ended somewhere after the frame. And that is another reason why I wanted to continue with the live streams, is because you could kind of follow along and get through it just like I got through it, but instead of me looking frantically and asking for help, a lot of the information is already going to be provided for you there. I have a feeling that by this time, it's been many, many months now, by this time the instructions have gotten further, but that's just something that you have to keep in mind. And another reason why planning one of these things is really important. You have to know what you're getting into, and this is one of the reasons why I do not recommend the Micron Plus kit to be your first Voron kit or similar kit. I would definitely suggest either building a larger Trident, or if you want a smaller machine, the V0, because both of those things are way, way more simpler than the flying gantry, fiddly small part Micron Plus. If I could do it, you could do it. And as you can see, it's here. So you could definitely get it done. And there's a lot more resources out there now, but just saying, when I was doing this kit, the instructions were pretty limited, especially when comparing this FormBot kit to the FISEC kits that I have built other machines with. Number two is plan and prepare your print files and mods. And one of the coolest things about this is the print files. You have to print it yourself, so that's a thing. And I decided for mine to print it only on the Trident and the V0. The majority was printed on the V0 actually, except for just a handful of parts. So this is made, a Voron made by other Vorons, but I went with ASA for this build from 3D Max. We got vintage white for all this tan color, and then for the black I used ASA carbon fiber, and they came out great. I really love it, and I have one more spool of each if I needed to print any more modifications or anything like that. And that's what I advise for you guys. If you're gonna do this yourself and pick out your color scheme, make sure that you have at least another spool extra, just so you can do more stuff with it later and you don't have to search for it. So planning your print print files and your modifications ahead of time is a big deal. You know, as you guys know, the tool changer is something that I was planning for, and having all those files ahead of time in folders, printing all the files ahead of time so that when you get to the part to build, you can just take care of it. That's really one of the most important parts of having a smooth Voron build like this. So that's number 2. Number 3 is be ready for fiddly parts, and that's only because this is a 1515 machine. It is definitely much more shrunken down from the 2.4, so everything's closer together. All the parts are smaller, all the hardware is smaller, all of the nuts that you have to slide into the extrusions are smaller, the electronics are tighter together. It is just a little bit more fiddly. If I could do it, you could do it, but at the end of the day, if that's going to bother you, then definitely go with a larger machine or a simpler machine. Number 4 on here is that this kit has a very low quality screen. Now, there is a nice size screen here, and it is touchscreen. You can use it, but there's just something about that particular model screen. For example, if you're gonna be putting in your Wi-Fi into here, you could barely even do it with a stylus. It's just not very responsive. Sometimes you click an area and it clicks a different area. It's nice to have a screen down there, but I was all thinking about running this thing headless because it's just not the best screen in the world. So just keep that in mind if you're looking forward to having a really nice touch screen, which a lot of 3D printers have now. This particular touch screen that comes with the cable with the kit could definitely be upgraded a bit. All right, number 5 is you have to plan out the build that you want or go legacy. So let me explain what I mean by that. I don't mean legacy like the Voron legacy. I mean with the legacy build of the kit, like the older version of the kit. One of the examples is, in my particular case, I decided not to go with any end stops because it takes away so much wiring, and you don't have to have sensors on the X and Y and on the Z. It just uses the stepper motors and the stepper motor drivers to tell when the machine is home. So like little planning ideas like that save you not only a ton of hardware, a ton of wiring, a ton of thinking, and just, you know, a little bit of finagling with some settings, which have plenty of how-tos out there on how to do it in Clipper. So just little things like that will help dramatically in your success with the build. So definitely plan everything out ahead of time. I guess this kind of feeds back into one of the earlier cons, but just means that, well, it's pretty important. Number 6 is pricey by today's standards. As you guys know, better and better machines are getting cheaper and cheaper. There are still plenty of expensive machines, but these kits aren't necessarily cheap. You're not getting into these kits because they cost less. You're getting into these kits because they're totally custom and extremely fun. So just keep that in mind when you guys are looking at a price. I believe this machine is around $600. It floats somewhere there between $500, $600, even sometimes $700. So it's not necessarily the cheapest 3D printer that you're gonna get. All right, and then it's a lengthy, complex build. For example, 2.4 versus Trident, or the Micron versus something like a salad fork. And the salad fork is another one of these smaller shrunken down machines in the printer for ants universe, where everything is kind of much smaller. So the first analogy there, the 2.4 versus Trident, is the 2.4 uses this flying gantry, which is definitely more complicated than the Trident, which is just 3 Z lead screws that move the bed and the gantry just stays stationary at the top. They're just simpler machines, so a little bit simpler versus a little bit more complex. The outcome is very similar, and just like that, the Micron, which is the smaller version 2.4, and the salad fork, which is the smaller version of the Trident, they have a similar thing. So if you want something like this, you can also go with a salad fork, which is probably a little bit easier to build than something like this. Lengthy, complex, but nothing to be scared of, and definitely super rewarding at the end. That's all the list that I have for cons. So if you can get through those cons, you're gonna love these kits and you're gonna really like the pros that we're gonna get into next. Let's go. All right, so for the pros, and I went over some of these already a little bit in the intro there, but it's completely open source, open canvas. You can use Clipper, you can use Orca Slicer, or quite frankly, anything else that you want to use or put on here, which is amazing. It's definitely one of the most fun parts about this thing is just how customizable it is. I know some people might even be scared because it is so customizable, and at the same time, there's guides on all of it. There's guides on how to keep it stock. There's guides on each modification. For example, if you wanted a totally different tool head, the tool head, once you get to that part, you just use the modification instructions and then go right back to the kit. So it's actually somewhat simple in that sense, yet completely up to you, which is amazing. And the open source nature of it means there's people working on it constantly improving it. So by the time that you get to actually get to the kit, there's better things already out there. If some new better modification comes out, or a piece of hardware that's just better for the kit, well, it's very likely that it's going to be adapted, shared online, and you'll be able to put it on yourself and add it. That's just wonderful. Number 2 is high quality motors for the A and B. Uses Moon's motors, has high quality extrusions and linear rails. I've built other kits where the linear rails had a little bit of slop. All of these have been really high quality. Moon's motors are some of the best in the industry. Uses those for A and B where it matters the most. This is definitely a high quality kit. All the hardware feels really nice. It's very nicely labeled in each bag. If you go back to some of the live streams, you'll see that finding the hardware that I needed was actually very easy and simple. The extrusions are very nicely coated. They don't leave fingerprints like some of the other kits that I've seen. And they've definitely been anodized after they've been cut and threaded. So there isn't any kind of silver in here if you go with the black extrusions, because you can definitely get the extrusions in any color you want. It is the perfect size to get things done, but not to take over your desk. And that's a major factor in this, because one of the original points of this machine is to have this much power right on your desk. It is a rather small machine. In fact, if you compare it to the A1 Mini, they take up about the same space on the desk. And if you were to go with the multi-tool head modification like I'm doing for this thing and print 4 colors, it actually takes up less space than the A1 Mini with the AMS light sitting off to the side of it. So it's a very compact build, 180 by 180 by 180 on the build plate, and just, we call it fun size, because well, having a large 2.4 Trident right next to you when you're working, it can get a little bit large and take over the rest of your desk, whereas this definitely will leave a bunch of room around you. And one of the most important things, this particular machine is rather quiet to have on your desk compared to some modern machines that are coming out there. So fun size. 4 is that this is a shrunken 2.4, like I mentioned several times now. The weight is really down low. It has a rigid mounted bed, which is awesome, and it has this slick flying gantry design. So there's a lot out there about these machines. It's not very much, it's not a hidden secret. There's definitely companies out there like Sovol that are taking, the flying gantry and the 2.4 just in general and making their own machines out of it. They're open source. They're welcome to do that. And this is one of those. And it's just a great design of a machine, very unique, and one of those like trick builds where it's just amazing to see it function with the 4 separate Z motors and its Z-tilt functionality that it does. It's really cool. 5 is you get lots of extra hardware in the kit. This is left over so far from everything that I have built, and there's quite a lot of hardware in there. I know it's small and doesn't take up much space. There's actually more hardware down below me here where the box from this thing is, I like that, because if I was to do more with it, whether it's maintenance or more modifications, I know that the kit itself has my back. Like for example, right over here I can tell that it has at least 10 more hot press inserts, heat press inserts in there. So if I was to do some kind of change or modification, I could just go back to the original kit and have more hardware. I would much rather have extra hardware in my kits than an exact count, or obviously not enough. So definitely a huge benefit there is they give you plenty of extras for more fun. This machine has a super clean electronics bay. The wire management is very clean. It has just enough space for everything that you need and no space for everything that you don't. It's very well designed and just a clever build in general. Really enjoy it for sure. And finally, one benefit that I find that's fantastic is that you can use A1 Mini build plates like I mentioned. So this one in particular I've been using on this machine. It has that honeycomb pattern on the front, and then this kind of boxy overlaid pattern on this side. And like I mentioned, you can use these by putting them in sideways, and if you take off the 2 screws for the guides, you can put them on normally as well. It just has slightly different alignment tabs, but it uses the same exact size, and the build plates work for both. So if you have the A1 Mini and you have a bunch of those plates, you can already use them, or you can that there's a large aftermarket for bamboo machines, so you can get any of those build plates and it'll work on this machine. Definitely another huge benefit. All right, now you guys know the cons, now you guys know the pros. How about we take a look at some of these prints that I've gotten off this thing and what I did to get it to this level of quality. All right, let's go. Come a little closer. All right, so of course I started off with the Orca Slicer Cube. And this is the first one that we went ahead and printed. There was actually a bunch more before this, and I had a lot of trouble with VFAs, and it turned out to be a problem with my belt tensioners. There's videos on this out there. I used a modification belt tensioner first, and they ran into problems with the belts being pinched. This was fixed by switching those out, and this was the first one we did after that. As you can see, this is pre-tuning, so there's definitely some ghosting going on. There's just a bunch of little issues here and there, but let me tell you how rewarding this thing was to take off the printer anyway, because it printed. This thing came out, even though it has its issues, like you couldn't put this in there at all whatsoever there. You know, the fact that this was able to print out of something that you built over all that time, just super, super fun. Anyway, this was the first one. I know it needed tuning after that. So what I did was I went back into Clipper and we did rotation distance first. Got a couple blobs here, made sure that it's rotating how it needs, and printed another one right away. Right off the bat, we definitely got a better result. There was less filament coming out, obviously, so I was able to get this guy in there, although that's in there forever. If I try to take that out of there, it's broken. However, as you could tell, just in general, we got a better result. So then I went in for further tuning, and we did flow calibration. Here was the flow calibration test. This was the final one. We needed 0.5 for this particular filament. There we go. As you can see, literally perfect result. We did a PA test as well as some other tests. There we go. And an Orca Slicer. This gives you the exact one that you just need to put in, the value you need to put in. Very nice. And then after that, I printed another cube, and here is the result of that. We did some shake tuning. So we got the skin looking much, much better. And check out the bottom. It fits so well into here that when you screw it in, you can't even tell that it's in there. It's really just fantastic. So what a result. No more over extrusion at the top there. Just a really, really good looking cube. And like I said, one of the most rewarding things was getting something like this with this much accuracy out of a printer that you build yourself. All right, after that, and just like on many other machines, I printed two of the other tests that I've been running on pretty much everything. One is the 3D Benchy in PLA, as well as the Torture Toaster. Here's the Benchy, since everyone is familiar with these things. This was not the fastest Benchy in the world. I believe this was just under 30 minutes, somewhere 28-ish minutes, so it definitely took its time. Keep in mind that this is not a fast PLA machine. At least my particular setup is not meant for fast PLA. It'll print really fast, but it'll print fast in ABS or ASA because the cooling is not the best on that particular tool head that I build. Now, if you want to build this thing to be faster for PLA, you can do plenty of modifications for cooling and take it that way. But look at the quality of this Benchy. There is very, very little to complain about at all. It's very tough to actually find things to complain about. I mean, you could even see the text on the back. So obviously extremely proud of this. Then we get into the Torture Toaster. Like I said, I've been doing these with every other machine that I have, so comparing them makes it a little bit easier. It's the same filament as well. Here you can see very minimal stringing, almost nothing there. Let's start to open the sides here. Here is the overhang test. Like I said, this isn't going as fast as possible, but look at those overhangs. Even with those tiny 30mm cooling fans, this thing just absolutely crushed this. Here you can see the bottom. You can see just the general skin and outer levels are super smooth. It's just amazing, really. And then let's get to the other side here. Here we go. And on this side, we can see the clearances. We got movement on 0.5, movement on 4, movement on 3, movement on 2, but no movement on 1, which is actually a really great result, especially because these things are not super loose like some of the other recent machines that I've been testing where these things fall right out. So we got movement, but they're not super loose, which is absolutely perfect. That's the best result that you could look for. So absolutely crushed this Torture Toaster test and the Benchy. All right, then I started printing some more fun stuff. One of the other fun things to print in PLA is these collapsible swords, and they print in one piece. You kind of swing them open and then they come out like this, and they're just super fun to show off just in general. Here, let me close it so you can see the quality. Here is the quality we're able to get out of PLA on this machine, and it just looks incredible. I know pretty much everything can print PLA nowadays, but there's just something about it, like I said, printing it on a kit. And this is beautiful, beautiful filament. Yeah, just an absolutely great job on this, as well as some of these other things. So this was another really fun one that I printed, as you could see, a couple times. And this is actually a portable fishing rod. As you can see, I have fishing line in there. If we just pull this out, you kind of grip this thing, press and hold the trigger, and the line comes out so you can cast it. And then, well, there's a really fun little hidden lever right over here. If you take it out and put it into here, screw it in, there we go, while I'm holding the line. Well, you can cast by pressing this button and quietly reel, or you can get a clicking reel. Very, very cool. I love this thing. I'm going to test it later in a different video on my little fishing spot that I have here locally. Oh, fun fact, I just remembered while cleaning up, actually both of these things are printed in PETG on this machine, and it did fantastic. All right, that's all. Very, very fun. Like I said, I printed it a bunch, and I actually printed this thing a little bit larger as well, just so I can show off not only the print quality, but how it works. So I really love the size of this thing, but I decided to print it a little bit larger, and I actually ended up liking the smaller one. But let me show you some of the other qualities, just different filaments. As you can see, I put a little bit of grease in there. But essentially, this was a good example of how it works with parts that go together. So this is your spool. This is where you put your fishing line onto, and it just sits like this. And this is your button with the built-in spring mechanism. Fantastic design. You kind of push it in there, it pops right in. Here you can see how it works. So if you were to reel, you can see this acting like a spring, and it clicks. And if I press this, it can now freely spin. So there's some other parts you put onto the front here. This makes sure that the fishing line goes straight, and if this thing ever wears out, you just print another one. Then this whole side clamps on. I'm not going to push it together because I want to put fishing line on it, but this whole thing gets held together with this. Once again, brilliant design. This just goes right in there. It has threads. There it goes. And then we finish this thing off by putting on this knob onto the reel. You can obviously put it in the center here to hide it for easy pocketability, or you screw this on, and now we have, once again, a reel. And this is going to make for an awesome gift, or just an awesome just thing to put into your bag if you have a fishing spot near you. With a little lanyard, this thing's perfect. So once again, look at the quality of the machine once you get this thing tuned. It's absolutely insane, and I'm in love with it. So one of the things that obviously you don't see here is any kind of ASA or ABS, and that's because the machine is still open, and I'm going to close it a little bit later when I do the multi-tool head modification like I mentioned. But those are all the test prints that I've done on this machine so far. I'm going to continue using it, so you'll see more and more as time goes on, especially because of the different build plates. For example, this little print here, you can see the bottom is that honeycomb bottom, which is actually pretty cool. This is also a beautiful filament by Prusa there. That's like almost see-through plus glitter, and has this depth to it that other filaments just kind of lack, but nice little box there. So yeah, printer prints fantastic. All right, let's go back up to the desk and talk about the printer in the conclusion. Let's go. All right, guys, if it wasn't obvious already, I really, really love this machine. The fact that it came out this nice, everything just came together at the end. Absolutely love it. As far as the FormBot kit itself, I rank this thing up there. The only downside is at the time of when I was building it, the instructions weren't complete. But other than that, the hardware, everything that comes in the box was really top notch, and I had no issues regarding that stuff that came with the kit. I must add though, one of the things you'll notice in the live streams is the reason why I didn't put this into the cons is it could have been an issue with the electronics or the build itself, or maybe I did something, because you do put it together. But definitely wanted to note that little thing, that in my particular kit, the tool head went out after the first print, and I had to buy another hot end. Not the biggest deal, especially because I had to buy a bunch more anyway, but just something to note. I don't know if that's a QC issue or whatever, but other than that, everything else in the kit, the belts, the pulleys, the motors, the wiring, everything, even down to the sheathing for the wiring, was very good. One thing, like I said, in the pros and cons, definitely plan out your build and definitely focus on making sure that you have everything printed ahead of time, so you don't run into a situation where you got somewhere in the instructions and you don't have that physical part already printed. So this definitely can't be a machine that you buy as your first machine. You have to have another machine that's capable of printing ABS or ASA. In fact, you can build or a V0 or purchase a V0 and print everything on it. That small 120 by 120 build plate can print almost everything on this machine, aside from some vanity parts that you don't need for this thing to fully run. Those I printed on the Trident. So as far as the closing of this goes, would I recommend this to somebody? Oh yeah, definitely. I would highly recommend this FormBot kit. I'll have links for it down below, obviously. If it wasn't obvious enough already, FormBot did send me this kit in order to make content on it. No money exchanged hands. There was no contracts, nothing like that. They just sent me a kit in a box, and I really enjoyed putting it together, and I gave you all the pros and cons that I could, as well as all the other content that I made about this thing, so that you're fully aware of what it is like to put together. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. There's many other like it on the channel, so definitely give a subscribe and a like to this video. Obviously, it helps a lot. There's lots of other things that are related to the channel, such as a very awesome Discord where you can go and chat with like-minded people, share your builds just like this one, get help wherever you might need, and just share cool prints that you're doing or cool 3D print related stuff. It's really fun in there. I definitely have a Patreon for the channel if you guys want to support. If you want to support in another way, like getting some of these really nice shirts that I design, or various other things like these consoles that I've been designing and working on based on Nintendo DS Lites, that is going to be found on 3dprintsos.com. Lots of other cool things in there, so definitely check it out. As always, all the links are down below. And once again, I'll see you guys in the comments. Later.